Gene and say, "Hey, Gene, I got this game idea"? How does that even happen?
You could. That would be step one. You just got to get somebody's attention over there, no matter who it is, and then we pass things up the channel to the boss. And Andy Lewis, who's one of the 5 principals, is one of the he's technically the gatekeeper, and he's the one who would review new games from designers who haven't worked with GMT before to see if this is a kind of product he thinks would fit in our product line. And, you know, is it something that we could sell to the customer base who traditionally shops at GMT?
Okay. I mean, that's I think most people, at least how I kind of figured it happened. I mean, GMT, as we were talking before the show, GMT is not exactly IBM, right? Although IBM is no longer IBM anyway. They got like 27 employees now. In fact, GMT might be a bigger company than IBM nowadays. Thinking about it. Hoping nobody watching had IBM stock back in the day.
How many employees at GMT, Kai?
You know, I don't know for sure. A couple dozen of us.
Like, is this the only company right now that's carrying
with
on
employees and wargaming? Yeah, I suspect it is.
You know, carrying on that did the Avalon Hill, like in-house employees and the SPI in-house employees.
SPI had in-house employees. Avalon Hill had a few, but not as many as maybe you think.
Oh,
yeah. That most of the Avalon Hill people were on the production side of things because they were their own printer, right? Monarch Printing.
Right, so MMP's got staff, right? And
they've got Brian and Brian's wife and the kids, and it's pretty much all family, and then that's kind of it, and a couple other people. But
yeah, I thought they had a couple other people, and then Revolution Games. Okay, granted, it's the 2 owners, but it's not just a guy. But yeah, I guess in our little niche hobby, we are on the larger side.
So I guess people come into the office with their coffee and all that and hang around the water cooler and talk crap.
No, because we're spread all over the world.
Oh.
I mean, like me. I mean, I'm working from home. You're looking at the back door of my office sitting here.
Like 100% you're working from home?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I'm in Santa Rosa, which is about 5 hours north of where the warehouse is.
Okay. That would be a terrible commute.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. You know, but we're in like Texas and Oklahoma and New Hampshire. It's just like everywhere. We're spread out all over the place. And then the folks who are doing artwork and layout, and we're literally all over the world.
That's a bit confusing, man.
It's not. So I mean, that's becoming the norm. We're still working on that, but that's more normal now than it used to be.
Yeah,
and I don't think
it's email back and forth, and we've got an FTP site that we just load and download files from back and forth to each other, and it's just as good as working with somebody who sits in the next office. It's actually better because I don't have to get out of my chair and go talk to them.
I agree.
What about gossip and stuff like that? That doesn't happen anymore.
I don't think that doesn't happen.
I'd never gossip anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's going to happen anyway.
So, Kai, you're in the production part of the stuff, right?
Yes.
So what does production mean? What does it mean?
At GMT, what does that mean?
That means when the game is first announced on the P500 list, where people pre-order, before that happens, I get a list of all the components, and I have to determine what we're going to be able to sell the game for. What's our P500 price? That's a discount from our retail price. And I have to be able to come up with both of those numbers and provide that to the boss. So when he makes his announcement, people can immediately decide, do I want to order or not order? Then I kind of step back out of the process until we get to the tail end of development. Once the art department is done, layout's done, rules are solid, we've got a box, all the pieces. Then they come back to me and say, okay, now we need to hook up with the printer. Here's all the components that we came up with at the end of the project versus with the list they gave me at the beginning. And I double check it to make sure we haven't gone like crazy over budget or anything weird. And I send all those specs, including all of the printer information, to the printer to get their bid for whatever they're going to be able to produce this at. And I have to give them certain quantities. You know, I want to see this in 2,000 quantity. I want to see a 2,500 and a 3,000 so I can compare and find out where my price break is. And then they crunch those numbers and kick them back to me. I decide how many we're printing, and I tell them, okay, you're approved for this amount, go. And
so
then
you guys use the same printer all the time, or you have different printers?
we have one printer we're working with right now.
And so what happens when there's a it's stuck in the middle of the ocean type thing? For some reason, I don't know, does it seem to happen? It doesn't seem to happen to GMT, or does it?
Stuck in it? No. We've gotten stuck in port before. We had a couple years ago, there was a strike, I think it was just before I started working here, where the dock just shut down for I think about 30 days. Recently, we had one bin that the main dock got full, and they started shunting cargo containers off into a second yard. And once they hit that second yard, now there's an entire another procedure you have to go through to get it back out again. And so that took us several days to get our container back.
Basically, you're greasing a lot of fat Italians, right?
I wish it was that easy. No, it's paperwork and waiting. But no, for the most part, our stuff we book our shipments to come direct across, so we're not hitting secondary ports where you get tied up in delays and things can happen. So we take a direct shipment from the printer's port to one of the 2 ports that we use in California. And then once it hits port, we just hook it up with a delivery truck, and they ship it off to the warehouse.
So do you ever have to have that conversation that the airlines had when they like changed the in-flight martinis to 2 olives from 3 olives, and you ever have to have that conversation with Richard Borg? It says, no, Richard, you could only have 27 blocks instead of 28 blocks in this game.
No, I've had to double check the math and approve additions to games where they were like, we thought it was going to be this, but we really need that extra entire counter sheet kind of thing. And I'll go back and crunch the numbers and find out, is that within the realm of, can I still squeeze that in and maintain our price without taking a hit? And if it's doable, then I'll say yes, but don't do that again. If it's not, then we'll try to find a mid ground. Can we take away a few blocks and make them counters instead? Because wood blocks are more expensive. So if I take away 30 blocks and give you a half sheet of counters, will that still get you the game you want? And I can still do that at the price point we were looking at.
Very expensive.
So Kai, would you actually have a discussion like that to a high profile designer like Richard Borg, or Richard Borg has carte blanche?
I don't know that anyone has carte blanche. I tend to defer to Tony Curtis, who has had this job since forever, is the one training me. And I have now stepped in where I'm making the calls, and I'm just double checking with him on the weird stuff that pops up, which it seems like every project has something weird. But so yeah, if somebody came up like that and one of the big name guys like Mark Herman is demanding stuff, or which he wouldn't do, but I would just be like, okay, how much leeway does this guy get? And at what point do I just put my foot on his neck and that's the way it is?
So you've got to be the yes, no person.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I can be the no person. It is what it is. We're running a business. We're not in the business of losing large amounts of money. So if I have to cut somebody off on their stuff, you told me in your initial list of components, we were sticking to this, and that's what I priced it at. If you have inflated that to the point where I can no longer tell the company, yes, we can make money on this product, we either can't produce the product, or we have to make some changes, or we're just not doing good business. So yeah, there will be a point at which you have to say no, but the folks who work with us, most of them have worked with us for so long that they understand how this works, and yeah, you screw up and, I need 1 more counter sheet, or I need 5 more blocks or something, those are small asks. And for the most part, I can just take a look at them and go, okay, yeah, we can squeeze that in. Just, try not to do that again next time. But if it was something egregious, yeah, I would have to say no. It's in the best interest of the company not to be throwing money out the door.
So has that actually happened where you've had to like kick somebody in the ass to?
No.
Okay. I kind of thought maybe no. I mean, I imagine everybody's going to kind of be with the program here, or they wouldn't be working with you in the first place.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Kai,
and I've only been in this job for about a year, so maybe it just hasn't come up yet.
yeah,
Well,
Kai,
maybe.
because I was just talking to Mark Herman, and he said
Never
wants
underestimate your ability to be disappointed by wargamers.
yeah, keep cutting me off. Keep cutting
Go
me
ahead,
off. Make me
please.
look like the big loser that I am.
Please continue.
So Kai, I was talking to Mark Herman, and he said that for his Pacific War, the next edition, he wants miniatures.
No.
Thank you very much.
Come on, man! It's Mark Herman, for God's sakes.
Nobody wants miniatures. It's not like Mark is afraid to work with other publishers that maybe do handle miniatures, you know. So he's got an iron in every, literally an iron in every fire, it seems.
That's like a threat, Artie. That's a threat.
So I've been looking at the GMT monthly report for years, right? And there's kind of these statuses. It's like this stuff's at the printer, this stuff's going to the printer, this stuff is in final art and proofing, and we certainly have the sense that those are like progressive stages of the process. Once the kind of game's in and GMT's got it and it's somewhere in the pipeline, what can you? I do feel like. And maybe it is just art. I don't know. When stuff says it's in the art department, I mean, I think the taking that at face value means, well, they're still working on the art. But sometimes those things sit around for quite a long time.
Yeah, GMT's got it is a really loose description of some of that stuff because it's like we're aware of it, But if the design and development teams get to a point where they're like, okay, we think we're ready for art, you start throwing art at them. We get them hooked up with the guys. And we start working through the process and they go, oh, something came up during playtesting. We've got a subsystem that is now broken. And we have to stop everything. Can't even do more artwork because we think we're changing components now because this has to get fixed. The development team will put a halt to, and we will stop art. We will put the brakes on everything and it's just going to sit in the category it's in until they get back to us and say, okay, problem resolved. We're now ready to move forward again.
And how quickly is that tackled?
Depends on the developer. And that's outside of GMT's hands because it's not a GMT developer per se. It's folks who are doing this out of love for the hobby on their own free time. I mean, this is what I used to do was every evening after work, every weekend, every holiday, any chance that I wasn't at the office, I was working on development, but that's on my personal time. So at the point that I was doing it, GMT was stuck with how much free time have I got to be doing this kind of work. So the work only progresses at a pace equal to what your developer is capable of, and if real life things crop up, development tails out for a really long time. I mean, I was working with a guy on a project. We were actually converting some board games over to digital and he had a stroke, and that was just, everything came to an absolute halt. And we waited to see, is he going to recover? Is he not going to recover? We don't know what's happening. Everything's in limbo. And it was several months until we determined, okay, he's not going to be capable of continuing to work on this. But that took several months just to even get to the point where we knew that for sure. So, some of this stuff, some of it gets resolved quickly. Hey, we think we have a problem. Oh, never mind. 2 weeks later, we've got it ironed out. Some of it could take months, many, many months to get to the point where they're like, okay, we think we're ready to proceed again. But those teams are independent.
So that art department stage, the expectation is that there's probably still some degree of development still happening in that phase. Final play testing.
When they get down to it'll be final play testing. Yeah. And we're not usually surprised by, anything that crops up once you've gotten to that point. I think it's a rare thing because like I mentioned before we started recording now, Jason Carr is working as GMT's main development head. And he's got a ton of people working under him doing development that we are progressively fine-tuning. And so he's got a really good handle on where exactly is that game in terms of development, in terms of readiness for art. And so he's got his finger much more on the pulse of that now than we've had in the years leading up to him taking that position. So I think that's also helping to refine and streamline our process, which has been over the last couple of years since he came on.
We got a great question here from Agri Day, and I'm going to kind of spin this a little differently. How much production impact is there when a designer wants non-standard, say, counters? Is there an effort to make people adhere to whatever the standard, is, whether it's half-inch counters or 5/8" counters or whatever? I guess first of all, ask how often that kind of thing even comes up. Or is, just kind of the expectation coming in that you're going to have counters and they're going to be one of the standard sizes and
they're not, I mean, there's no standards. Well, okay, there are standard sizes and shapes, but you're not bound by that. If the game benefits from something a little outside the box, then we go outside the box. Fighting formations. I mean, we've got hexes and rounds and squares and rectangles, and
right.
He needed all of that for the look and feel that this is my husband's game, that he wanted. And GMT said, okay, what do you need? How many do you need per sheet? What do you need total? What do we do for you? And so he worked up his inventory of what he needed for the game, and they figured out how to make that work within a counter sheet. You need it, you can justify it. Heck yeah, we're doing it.
And I assume there's, I don't know if the die cutting process works the same as if I was doing it at home, right? I would assume that it does not. So is there like an extra upfront cost for doing like non-standard counter sheets, for example, to make a new die?
I don't know. There used to be costs for setting up the individual dies. But these days, with the way production goes, I don't know that even applies anymore, just because of the technology involved.
Mm-hmm.
We're not laser cutting everything and stuff like that. They're actually still punched with a die, but I don't know that we actually have to go through that whole process that we used to, where they have to set up a die, you have to pay for the whole thing, but then it's permanently there,
Mm-hmm.
You just keep using it and hoping to get your monies out of it over the long run. But I'm not aware of any issues with that.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me to hear that that's not as big a deal as it used to be. It used to be a big deal, but we're talking probably, I'd imagine we're talking about smaller printers. Are you working with the one printer that GMT is working with? Is it like a big printer that does a lot of stuff, or does GMT make up a huge chunk of their business?
No, they're a big printer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I kind of
we're
figured.
just a portion of. I'm sorry?
No, that's kind of what I figured.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're a big company overseas, and if my understanding, and I don't know if you want to comment on this or not, is that it's not generally held to be economical to print games with these kind of components in the U.S. anymore.
True. The pricing and the quality, which is really disappointing.
In the U.S.
In the U.S. Yeah. Tony used to put out feelers. I haven't started doing it myself yet, but anytime you get wind of a new print company, he would put out a feeler, talk to them about what are your standards, what's your replacement policy on, if you do a whole run of miscuts or something, what does the printer do to make that right? And a lot of U.S. printers are like, well, we printed them, you pay for them, tough. That's just the way they are. You want new ones, buy another batch.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, no, we can't afford that,
No.
because you make a mistake. And the printers that we do use, if they have an issue, they've got a policy already in place that says, hey, we make this right, because that's their product. So they stand behind their quality, and we can't get that here right now.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. And it's huge, because you hear, as careful as we are, or try to be, you still hear, oh, these guys always misalign their counters and stuff. There's always somebody who will complain about it, no matter how small the misalignment is. And I've seen some really bad ones. I saw one this morning. I was talking to a guy on BGG. He apparently just opened a game that was printed in 2009, and it was horrendously miscut.
Mm.
And so he called the office and said, hey, can I get another counter sheet on this? And of course, it's 14 years out of stock. So no, we don't really have these laying around.
Right.
I did reach out to him and asked him, okay, what exact game is this? Because it's one of a series. I recognized a couple counters, but I'm like, I don't know which one it's from, but give me the title. I'll go check my stash. If I still have this, it's yours. And I'm just waiting to hear back from him. But
there's two good questions there, man, from William and
yep. Thanks, William, for the support. Much appreciated. This is a great question. I may know the answer to this, but once again, my information may be out of date because I haven't been involved in any of this for a long time. His question is, how do the different components of the game, the maps, the counter sheets, compare in terms of how expensive they are to produce? I recall hearing at one point that the most expensive single thing in the game is generally the box. Is that still the case?
Let me look.
And thus the tendency and smaller publishers to produce stuff in Ziplocs, right? Even some relatively larger publishers, actually. I mean, and even GMT puts stuff out in Ziplocs from time to time.
Oh yeah, if it's small, if it doesn't warrant a box. No, actually, most expensive thing right now is mounted maps, which is then followed by the box, and then wooden components, and then everything else.
Okay. That's I think that's pretty interesting that I mean, back in the day, we didn't necessarily have an expectation of mounted maps. Even Avalon Hill stopped doing mounted maps at one point. So, and that was, kind of their shtick for quite a long time. I got another question here from Manders, who asks, how much does the number of orders past that P500, the number 500, impact sort of the priority and how hard it is? I mean, I would imagine this is dependent on how the progress of the game is going, right? I mean, if it's not ready, it's not ready, right? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's based on development. Obviously, as soon as it hits 500, we're starting to watch it, and just we reach out and touch base with the teams and say, hey, where are you at? How much progress are you making? How quick do you think you're going to finish up? But if they say, hey, we're still a year out, it is what it is. We can't publish it just because the numbers are there. And there are some games that are on the P500 that have fabulous numbers, and I would love to be able to catch that in, but the team isn't ready yet. So,
Kai, John Butterfield's new game, what's the name of the game? Away
team.
Away team. Thanks. Okay. Right now it's like he's almost got 2,000 orders. Does that mean that you guys are pushing him, or he goes at his own rate, and regardless of 2,000, 5,000 orders, he's gonna do what he's gonna do?
He's gonna do what he's gonna do, but he is pushing this project forward. There is a ton of writing involved in this one because it's a paragraph-driven game. There is a ton of what has to be quality writing because these paragraphs that he's using have to be able to cross over certain systems, I believe. So you can land in one star system and you go through your little adventure, and some of those paragraphs that you come across need to also work in other star systems under different.
How the hell does he do that?
I do not know. The man's a genius, and his brain works in unknown ways.
He does it by being John Butterfield in his spare time.
Yeah.
So,
and I thought he hated that type of stuff when going back to Ambush. I thought he disliked that paragraph stuff.
Well, it's hard to assemble a game like that. I mean, you got to do all that writing and got to probably process map this entire giant flowchart of little decision trees and stuff like that.
You got literally thousands of decision points.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's got to be a huge.
I can't fathom that.
Well, we can ask Kai this question, but when I suggested on a Wargaming, I don't know whether this was Facebook's, it might have been Facebook, might have been BGG or Consum World, that I don't need more dice, really. Why do we continue to put dice in games? People went absolutely bananas when I suggested that we just maybe save 50 cents and leave the dice out, right? I mean, is this a discussion that anybody is even having nowadays? I guess is my question.
Well, how do you know? Okay, so you've got 1,000 pre-orders. How do you know out of those 1,000 pre-orders, how many of these people, this is their first game? You have no idea. So if you sell it without the dice, they now have to go get something else in order to play the game. Is it worth the 50 cents for us to give you a game that you can pop the box, get over that smell, and then play, you know, without having to stop, go out to your local game store, you know, go dig around in somebody's shoebox, find another die.
So I take it that the dice do not ordinarily make up a large percentage of the total cost of production.
No.
Okay, I kind of figured.
In some of the games, I mean, there's custom dice. Obviously, the ones that have the cool symbols on them and stuff like that, or they've got to be numbered 0 through 9 instead of 1 through 10. You know, because based on how your CRT runs, that makes a difference. You know, and we're not going to assume that everybody's got those dice. And, you know, it's kind of cool. You can like color code them to the different factions. And, you know, for the couple of cents that it costs, I think it's worth it.
I mean, I personally got plenty of dice. I got like a whole cabinet of dice, but obviously that's true. I mean, you not everybody's going to have 1 million dice, particularly if it's anything other than D6s.
True.
And I don't want to be playing the French and not have blue dice. I mean, that's crazy talk.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, you've got to have the right dice, and they got to have the right feel.
Yeah, and nobody else is allowed to touch my dice either.
There you go.
They're not allowed to put their greasy fingerprints all over my beautiful, pristine dice. So,
what have you got, Dan?
I forgot, but I think I just remembered. Kai, you said something about the smell of the box. Is there any way you can do something and prolong that smell?
Oh, no, I want to get rid of that smell.
put it in an aerosol can, perhaps.
Oh.
No, that's a free high.
I know everybody loves like the new book smell, the new game smell.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't stand it.
God,
I don't even notice that anymore, to be completely honest. Unless it's like something that's like printed on demand where it's like, woo.
Yeah, no, if I had my way, you would open the box and you get like a little hint of like chocolate chip cookie or something.
There you go. There you go. I mean,
anything's better than a new cookie.
You could get like
put a drop of vanilla in every box.
Literally like 1 drop of diluted vanilla extract. Nobody would ever notice it, and it would make all the games smell like fresh baked cookies.
No, I like that.
That's really not a bad idea.
I stick my face in a new game and I breathe it in, and it reminds me of when I was in 3rd grade when they used to photocopy stuff with that stenograph. Man, we get so stoned. Anyways.
The box scented new game scented candles. There you go.
Yep.
There you go. This is called, I've called this the box fart on video many times. So I mean, this is fair too, right? It's a completely reasonable statement. Like I said, people went bananas when I suggested not doing it. And this was not amongst a crowd of people who were new at this either.
Yeah.
It's like, man, don't you have like a bucket of dice sitting around?
Well, I get it. I mean, I used to have
40 years.
I used to have this ginormous, see, I can put both hands in there. Okay, like ginormous crystal bowl. Somebody gave it to me. It's not my thing. It was huge. It was full of dice. And after my husband passed, I had that lovely box that his ashes were in until I got him out in the redwoods. And then I've got this box. And so I had a friend of mine cut the top off of it and hinge it. And I just dumped that entire big old bowl. And I kept waiting for it to fill up. And I fit every single die into that box, close the lid. It's like, there's something to having all the options of all the dice and all the colors and all the sizes right on hand.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. You should see some of my OCD arrangements where the Napoleonic Wars has a special dice for each color. Even the minor nations have their own colored dice.
Absolutely.
Very difficult to find brown dice, by the way. I found.
Yeah, when I play TK2, I get the little teeny tiny dice, and I put them out for like my air. Just so I've got 1 pip, I've got 2 pips of air, whatever. The little micro ones, but you got to have the right colors.
Oh man,
you do.
I mean, you got to have thematically appropriate colored dice, enhance immersion.
There you go.
So that's the serious way of putting it. The unserious way is that I'm crazy. And that's the way it's got to be. So Dan is huffing the mimeograph ink.
Yeah, well, that comment, you knew all the kids that were going to be stoners later on in life that were smelling that stuff. Yeah, the crack at it. Oh, look at
that. We had a question here that and it scrolled off the bottom, and now I missed it. That was Jester's question. Thanks, Jester, for that dice question. Do we know anything about? I guess we had a specific question about Bear Trap. Do you have any insight on where that's at in the production process?
Bear Trap
made its number. Yeah, the Soviets in Afghanistan game.
Other than what's listed on the GMT update page, no,
Okay.
I'm not personally involved in that one.
So it's in the process somewhere.
Yes.
So, okay.
I would guess it's still in the hands of the development team for some reason.
Well, it's not in any of the in progress categories. It's just
Once they hit like in the art or nearing the art department, that's when you know they're really wrapping it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but until that point, it's just out in the teams wherever.
So this is a thing I've never particularly been confused by, right? Because almost everybody in hobby gaming, it seems like, is working off of some kind of pre-order, heavily pushing a pre-order mechanism in some way, right?
That makes sense.
It feels like GMT was at the cutting edge of that with the P500 plan at the very beginning.
Yes.
And I've heard it said, I don't know who said this offhand, that that really saved the company. Was just to have some measure of promised sales when the thing came out, and some measure of figuring out what kind of the demand was, right?
Yeah, gauging the interest on, do you guys want this game, or are we putting a bunch of effort into something you couldn't care less about? That was huge. But to answer, is that Biz? I'm going to mispronounce it. But it's not $500. It was 500 orders for the P500. Originally, when this system was conceived, 500 orders was what it took to get it over the hump and off to the printer. So with 500 orders backing a game, GMT could afford to send that off to the printer.
What does it take now?
I think it's around 750. But we're still using 500 as a benchmark, because by the time it breaks 500 and it's in the made the cut series, it tends to pick up a little traction. People go, oh, this one's really going to be a thing after all. Now I'm going to take a more serious look at it. And we tend to pick up those extra 250 orders before the game even goes to print.
Okay.
Is there a baggie shortage that I'm not aware of? Or did publishers stop putting baggies in the games?
Oh, well, for the recent games, that's probably my fault. Because I assumed when I got a component list from the folks working on the game that if they wanted baggies, they would ask for baggies.
Boxes and boxes of baggies.
Yeah, I've got literally banker's boxes full of them. But I didn't realize that it was just a standard thing. Tony was just throwing them in with every game. So I wasn't pricing them for that. And I wasn't including that in the instructions when I sent things to the printer. So, and I just started doing this last April. So I haven't actually been sending games to the printer since for the last 5-6 months now, personally, because I was in training before that. So for the last 6 months, some of these games came out that should have probably had baggies in them. And I just found out last week. So
because there was rumor that the Hells Angels broke into the warehouse and stole the baggies.
All the baggies, yes. Yeah. So there was a huge crack issue in California, and we just have a shortage, and that's the way it is.
Oh, man, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's me, and it's a learning curve. There's a lot to production, and I just recently came across that one.
Look at that. And Kai just blurted that out. No problem. It's my fault. Blah, 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 blah. We need more people like this on Earth.
I mean, we are
people like this on Earth.
Here on this show, the principle of it's all Dan's fault is well established. So this is a good question. I mean, it does kind of feel a lot, at least part of the time, like the reprint threshold or decision making is a little different, right? I mean, in some cases, it's like, well, we're pretty sure we're going to sell another 5,000 copies of Twilight Struggle. So yeah, let's push that button. But in other cases, it's felt like I think World at War was it. This I'm pretty sure this was before you took over. Was it something like 100 pre-orders, and they went ahead and said, "Yeah, whatever, we're going to print it anyway because we have confidence it'll sell." So what kind of goes into the decision-making process for reprints? Something that maybe doesn't need a lot of work or rework.
It's understanding what markets still exist for it. And the guys who do this, the 5 principals at GMT have been doing this for so long that they have a pretty good feel for the market. I am just now learning to do this, and actually came up in a meeting today where we were all putting our heads together and throwing out some titles for reprint. And so they've got a sense of, is this something that we can continue to ride and there is more market for it, or did we tap out whatever market there was the first time this game came through? You know, so they'll look at how many did we order and how long did it take to sell out? And, you know, have we heard demand for it in the meantime? You know, do we get a lot of chatter online of, hey, where's this game? How do I get my hands on it? Does anybody have a copy I can buy? You know, and we all monitor, you know, Console World and BGG and, you know, all the various social media. So we've kind of got our ear to that. And so part of that feeds in, and part of it is, you know, like the obvious no-brainer, like you said, Twilight Struggle. If it's got the TS tag on it, heck yeah, I think we're going to reprint it. So, but some of it is, like I said, just crunching the numbers. Like I went and looked at our inventory spreadsheet to see what games are not in stock right now that sold out quickly from a large print run the last time we did put them out, and to see, okay, what are we possibly missing out on an opportunity?
And Kai, is there any way you can get, for lack of a better word, influenced by people saying, hey, Kai, why don't you print this one? Why don't you print this one type thing? Or do you really go by the numbers?
I go by the numbers because I don't have enough background yet. I've only been in the wargaming hobby for what, a little over 20 years now. And I've only been in GMT for going on a year.
What do you mean?
You know, so I don't have.
Only 20 years. That's a generation.
Well, yeah, but I feel like I'm new to the hobby still because
I
was a miniatures and Eurogamer before that. So I don't have that extensive background going back into the 60s and 70s with war games. You know, so I don't feel like I've got the sense of it yet. But so I go by the numbers. I go by when did we print it? How many did we print? How quick did it sell out? How long has it been out of print?
And I have another question, but I mean, there's Kurt there. My God, I forget his handle. For God's sakes, ID Jester, he's busting chops here, asking about Combat Commander. But
is he still talking about the dice?
But first, I want to know when you guys sell second party stuff like HEXES, UGG, and all that, or is that third party? Artie, is that second party or third party?
No, that's third party.
So I said second party.
They're the third. Well, whoever. It's non-GMT games.
Right. So the non-GMT games, are you guys responsible for the printing of those games, or are they shipped like a ton of 500 games are shipped to you type thing from HEXES, let's say?
You know, I don't know because we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't gotten any of those during the almost a year that I've been in this position. So if we get them, they come in as a shipment from the company because they don't go through my print process that I know of. I haven't done any in the last year. I haven't seen any that we print for somebody else. So
the chat is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The chat is turning into a.
They just come in from the other publisher and we process, you know, shipping and tracking sales and all that stuff.
That's what I assumed. I mean, you could buy stuff directly from HEXES or UGG or whoever it is. So
you probably get a better price at GMT, for God's sake.
Well, last time I ordered HEXES stuff, I did order it from GMT. I mean, it just seems to make more sense to get it from California than from France.
Well,
so,
you know what? I bet you from France, the shipping's cheaper, for God's sake, man.
You know, somebody told me that the shipping from France wasn't that bad, but I'm fine. I'll be okay.
You know, I tried to ship a single counter sheet from Dominant Species. I had a friend in Scotland who lost a couple counters, and I'm like, don't worry about it. I got spares. I'll just ship you one. I took one counter sheet down. It cost $56.
That's insane. That's insane. Yeah. The world's going crazy. Let's press the button now. Press the button.
Because Dan can't get his extra counter sheet.
Jesus Christ, man. What the hell? You know, I bought a piece of plywood, cost me $150.
It's probably some kind of extremely fancy French plywood.
No, it's 5/8. It's 3/4 inch, for God's sake.
So do they have moose? Can you like just go to the grocery store and buy a bottle of moose milk in Canada?
Yeah.
Okay, that answers that question for those.
But why go buy it when I can just go across the street and milk it myself?
Just go milk the moose.
What the hell's the matter with you?
I'll just go over to the neighbor's house and milk, you know, Teddy's moose.
Are you tall enough to milk a moose?
That's funny, Kai. Kai, that's funny.
Wow. Thank you, Kai, for
Yeah, what a shot, eh?
for making me feel better about being the only person to insult Dan on this show. So there's like a bunch of questions in the chat about where's this game in the product? Why isn't this game? Blah, 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 blah. And I mean, in a lot of cases, man, those games are going to be with the designer or development team, right? They're not going to even be in the hands of GMT yet. I have very little, but not zero insight into specific things that have been in the pipeline just because I pay attention to people talking. And in like the Barbarossa games, I mean, I'm guessing you haven't seen those, right? Yeah, so those just aren't there yet. So talk to the designer or developer or whoever it is. So and like reprint of 3 Days of Gettysburg, I'll buy it. I'm happy to buy it, but you got to go talk to the GBACW people for that. Stigler's probably got more visibility on that than anybody else on the planet right now. So.
And you said Stigler. Alan Dickerson is on the P500 right now, and he's on the chat, and he always busts balls. And
apparently his game by Sword and Bayonet just hit 1,000 pre-orders on the P500. So
thanks for cutting me off, Artie. I don't remember what the hell I was going to say.
We're talking about Stigler, who's in the chat right now and who has a game on P500 by Sword and Bayonet, introduction to the GBACW series.
Oh, yeah, okay. So Stigler is a real hard ass on I hate solo. So when a grognard like that comes over and says, I don't want you to make a solo bot. And so what would you say? Shut up. We're going to make one, or okay.
Well, let me broaden that question a little bit. Actually, is in kind of the development process, and maybe you have insight on this, and maybe not, but is that a question that comes up where a design maybe doesn't have a solitaire bot? Is that a point of discussion that happens? It's like, hey, this could really use a solitaire mode.
That's an excellent question for Jason Carr. You should get him on here.
Dan, get on that.
Yeah, but is Jason Carr fun?
He's got to be more fun than me.
He's got to be fun, Kai, because if he ain't fun, if he's not going to take shots at me like you do, I don't want him. On.
I took one shot at you.
Wow.
Yeah, but what a shot, Kai.
Oh, that was a slow boil, but it really
what
was
a
good.
Curve, man. That was a curve
Boom.
drop, man.
Boom. I saw Dan's chair drop by 3 inches when
God
that comment.
damn.
So, so Stigler caveats that he doesn't presume to tell GMT not to produce solo games just because he doesn't like them.
Shut up, Stigler.
So we agree that lots of folks like solitaire games. So Dan, you got some questions, right? What
about solitaire?
About anything?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Who cut your hair?
My hair?
Yeah.
Random person at Supercuts.
Yeah, I cut
and
mine.
And you could tell it was a random person at Supercuts. I
cut mine personally because I was sweating too much, and in a drunken stupor, I just took scissors and I cut them. I feel better now.
Anyway,
I'm telling you, I do. I really do.
So I guess this is a little bit of like a warehouse and ship and logistics, endpoint logistics question. GMT's got the games, and they, how does that sort of decision making work between the charging and the shipping? Is there like a set period when we know it's 3 days, the boat's 3 days away or whatever, so we're going to set the charge date? Is there like a methodology to that?
Yeah, from what I understand, because I'm not fully trained on this end of the process either, I can get the boat, I can get the games to the printer, from the printer to the port, from the port onto a ship, and from the ship to our port, and then I've got a gap from there to the warehouse where I haven't been trained yet. That's actually something we're working on next month. But
yeah, that's called the Italian mafia.
Yeah, it's getting stuff out of port. But when stuff is out to sea, we are not assuming that we're still going to get our hands on it on schedule, because we know there's issues in port. So my understanding is that not until it's actually on a trailer leaving port and headed for the warehouse before they start charging credit cards. But we're monitoring, we know where that cargo container is on the ship, when it hits the port, when it goes from the port onto a truck. We're in on the timing on all of that. So we are aware of where we are in the queue of getting stuff moved out of that port and onto trucks. So at some point between when it arrives in port and when it hits that trailer to get on the road is when we're looking to go ahead and charge those cards, because that gives us like a 3 to 5 day window of making sure that it's going to show up on time. And then it has to get unloaded, which is huge, because when these trucks show up, and you picture, one of those 18-wheeler, big old Mack truck with a full cargo, that thing is packed to the roof in game boxes and has to get unloaded out of that truck and into the warehouse. But then they have to open all those boxes to get the games out. So that's a couple of day process. And that's some hefty work. That's like one of those all hands on deck scenarios.
Yeah.
So these things don't come in palletized?
What's that?
These things don't come in palletized then? Oh,
well, I don't know. I know they come in. Yeah, they've got to be palletized. They come in cardboard boxes with 6 games per box. And those get all stacked up. So I'm sure they're palletized and stuff, but still.
Yeah, I've got some of those boxes from when I bought 6 games at the same time.
That's a lot of back and forth from the truck to the warehouse to the shelving. And they've got to stop along the way and get to the shipping and packing with the labels and all that stuff station. So there's a lot of people involved.
I know how big a 53-foot bloody truck to unload. I used to work at Amazon, and let me tell you, it's really like a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah,
and I got another question. I got a question before Artie interrupts me. Minimum print run, maximum print run. What's the thingy?
Depends on the game.
But you must have a minimum print run.
I usually start around 2,500.
Maximum?
But it depends on. Oh, I've seen as many as 10,000. I haven't handled one of those yet, but yeah, I've seen a 10,000 unit order.
I guess 10,000 is a lot, eh?
That's a lot in this hobby.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, but Avalon Hill used to sell 350,000 of patches.
Yeah, but there were 8 games released that year. So, and Avalon Hill released 2 of them. So, I mean, remember, for a long time, Avalon Hill was literally releasing 1 to 2 games a year. And then they sped up a little bit later on. And then SPI came along. This is one of the reasons why SPI was such a game changer, because SPI would do 30 games a year, right?
And the market is not what it was. It used to be like when a new war game came out, no matter who was putting it out, everybody had to have a copy because there were so few of them. Everybody bought one because you knew you were never going to see it again, unless you were lucky enough to find it on a flea market table somewhere, right? Now, there are so many games competing for everybody's buck that you're like, I'll take a pass on that and I'll see if I can pick it up later, or I'm going to let that one go. I'm not collecting the series. I'll get this other game instead,
I'm gonna highlight this because this is something I've ranted about on many.
I was just about to say that.
Whereas like I can't fit, I got all this game is great, and now I can't get everything back in the box now that everything's in counter trays and blah 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 blah. And sometimes the counter trays don't even fit.
So Kai, this is your issue. Customer customer complaint? This is it, Kai. This is it. Can you please answer that question?
I am new to the process, but we do look at, do we think when you pull the insert out, we always assume you're going to get rid of the insert. I know there's some completists who have to keep every scrap of everything that was ever put.
Yeah, man.
The insert is just there for shipping purposes. So once you have the darn thing, throw that out.
Yeah, but it's got nice art on it. So why you have to put the nice art on it? So
what I have done occasionally is cut it out so it fits exactly in the bottom of the box flat, and then keep it in the bottom of the box. So the bottom of the box looks inside.
That's cool. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. But so we're assuming that the insert has got to come out, and then does everything still fit? Now, I mean, we can't account for all the different ways that people organize their games. Some people throw it in baggies. I've got a friend who just throws all the chits back in the box, which drives me nuts. There are people who do counter trays and they'll just fill the trays. and then you don't need as many. And there's some folks who organize all their units so only the French go in this tray and only the Germans go in, and all of a sudden you've got 8 trays to try and fit. That's not going to happen.
Oh yeah, that's.
And then there's the folks who've got the 3D printers. So we're never going to be able to account for all of it. So yes, it's something we think about. We take a shot at what do we think the most people will do. Can we get if bumping up half an inch size makes a difference? Is that something we can do price wise for you?
Is that, let me tell Frank here, if you didn't get an email receipt, I would just call them and get that straightened out. I'm sure that's the receipt.
Oh, Leslie, call the office.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So.
And somebody had a question about Pliny the Younger, and I'm sorry, I saw it come by on the scroll. And
that was John. I did see Pliny the Younger in here, but are you going to Russian River to get some Pliny the Younger?
That is a short.
What the hell is that?
I have no. I mean, I know who Pliny the Younger was, but
it's a locally brewed beer. They make it once a year. It is amazing. Pliny the Older is what's normally on tap, and the Younger comes out once a year. There's usually a line that goes all the way around the downtown area. It's about a mile and a half long on some day. It's crazy.
Are you serious?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So the fact that the line is only 2 blocks long is because we're in the middle of a bomb cyclone. So otherwise, everybody would be out there waiting for it. And you wait in line for like a day or two. Doesn't matter.
Is California
you make sure you get your
is California wanting for beer or what?
This must be amazing. There's good beer in California, actually. That made in California, right? There are entire styles of beer that originated in California.
Oh, yeah.
Like Amstel.
Like steam beer, for instance, is originated in San Francisco.
I'd like to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have never had that, actually, so I have no idea what that's all about. But
Anchor Steam is good. There's a local place in Healdsburg, which is just up the road from us, 20, 30 minutes up the road, where they do all their own in-house fresh style. And they're starting to get big and sell out of area. So yeah, we get some good stuff, and it's worth waiting in line for.
I'm going to get back to this box question because now I'm curious about how that affects the production. So I mean, is there flexibility with the actual print process that you're using, right? Is that something that you can ask for and say, hey, I think we need an extra ½ inch of box or 2 inches, whatever it is?
If we decide we need it, yeah, we just put it in the specs when I do finally send it off to the printer.
So
once we send stuff off to the printer, that's set in stone, because what has to change is not only, do we need to order a different box, which has a different price. So that's going to affect, are we still staying within our margins? But the art department also has to redo the box, bottom and top, so there's somebody's time and effort involved in that. And then that means you've got to double check all the artwork again. You got to go through another proofing set, because anytime you change something, something's going to happen. So you got to go through a whole nother double check and everything before you say, okay, yes, we can do this in the next ½ inch up. It's not a matter of just saying, yeah, we need to go.
So I would like to formally request that the next edition of Commands and Colors Napoleonics be in an 8-inch box. Let me get that in right now. That's about what it's taken for me to get this thing. That's just like literally consume my entire weekend is organizing this thing. So
Kai, I don't know why. I assumed you were very artistic and a little bit like please don't take this as anything other than what I'm saying. Artistic and a little bit flighty, but you're not. You're very cut and dry, and you're a very numbers person. And
numbers are numbers.
No is no, and maybe is no.
Well, you know what it was, Dan? You simply misheard. I'm not artistic. I'm autistic.
Oh.
It's the OCD, the numbers have to line up.
Sorry.
Golden marketing. Who's in charge of marketing at GMT? We got to get them in on the Commands and Colors Cube, the big CCC.
Marketing, that we have a team for that.
There you go.
That would be Rachel Billingsley and Luke Billingsley.
Okay, I got Rachel's email address. We could send this her way.
We
Commands and Colors Cube, 11 by 11 by 11.
I bust Rachel's boxes all the time. We should have her on.
There you go. Yeah, you got all.
Kai, what are we going to talk about with Rachel?
Anything you want. She's marketing.
I could think of a number of questions for Rachel off the top of my head.
No wonder I like her.
So she's
she
probably
do all
a
the
people
flash and fun stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's smart. She's a people person, and she gets to do all the splash, all the fun stuff.
Hey, maybe we should have her on, Artie.
There you go. I think it's a great idea. Happy
I'm
to
trying
have...
to have Jean on, but Jean is like that high school girl I always wanted to get, but I never did.
He's your holy grail. You need to get Jason Carr on. Is who you need to get on. He's a very sharp guy. He is fun.
No, but
very informative.
I've interacted with Jason a bit. He is witty and entertaining. So I think Jason would be a great guest. Actually.
I don't like witty people. They're smart. It's not good. It makes me look bad.
They would like go 45 minutes into the interview show and then they zing. So boom, knock Dan clean out of his chair.
You don't do a slow build to that one. You just let her rip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of questions about Combat Commander.
There was. Is that on the progress list right now?
Vietnam for John Sai. By the way, John, no, I'm not going to WBC because I had to lend Artie a couple of grand and he took all my money. Combat
I'm in
Commander
Tijuana
Vietnam.
right now. I don't know. That's a green screen behind me.
Combat Commander Vietnam. Is that happening? It's it. NDA. She signed an NDA. We got it. I know how to read woman face.
Let me ask. I guess that we got a couple minutes left here. Is that something that are NDAs something that GMT does? I mean, is this where you gotta keep things on the hush hush, or is it? Is there an attempt to be more transparent about stuff in general, not about Combat Commander Vietnam, which I assume would be a massive hit whenever it comes out?
Thank you. We try to be as transparent as possible, but there is some stuff for business reasons that we don't talk about. And there is some stuff for surprise value. I mean, when my husband used to have a game pending, if we took it to the warehouse weekend and showed it off, we would tell people, this one's under wraps. Do not post anything about this. And, we asked, don't take pictures, don't chatter about it online. We're waiting until the P500 number goes, or P500 announcement goes up for the big surprise, for a big reveal. And he would deliberately do that. So yeah, there are some folks, and we originally, when we started doing outside playtesting outside of our own home group of about 5 or 6 gamers, we did initially, and they had encouraged us to have playtesters sign an NDA so that we wouldn't have a whole lot of leaks going on about material because we didn't have stuff nailed down.
Dan's got a lot of leaks.
Yeah, and you know what, Kai? Yeah, because I'm Canadian, I would sign an NDA and then I would shaft you guys. What would you do?
So yeah, that's how that works.
I
mean, they're probably not because they're nice people, but that's what normally happens.
You can't sue me.
If you sign an NDA with Microsoft, they'll sue you if you break it.
No, I don't know that GMT would ever go to any lengths to do anything legal about it, but you would never be on another playtest team again.
That's right.
No one would trust you.
That's right. That's right.
And no one would do interviews with you, and you would just become persona non grata. And
right.
So,
right. If you're like that person that just flipped out and stomped out of the playtest, then you're probably not getting invited back to the next playtest.
Back when villagers used to do public shaming, it's that kind of thing where it's like, okay, you've now set yourself outside the welcome group.
And that's how small our community is.
Yeah. So you just don't do it.
I mean, that's certainly true. I mean, word gets around on that kind of bad faith behavior, let's call it. Since sometimes people just can't help it and they blab. But so anyway,
one question I wanted to address. Somebody wanted to know, how do I know so much about games in GMT?
Well, you work for GMT.
I do. Yeah, they missed the intro.
He didn't know. Yeah.
Okay. Oh well, I apologize on that person's behalf for missing the intro. Then
I'm not just randomly spouting stuff. I do actually work for GMT. I've been on staff for several years, part-time, doing rules writing and editing, proofreading, that kind of thing.
And you're still doing some of that too, right? So okay, great.
Yeah, Kai, but if you were spouting stuff, you did it pretty good. You're believable, let me tell you.
It's all snowed, right?
That moose line, man. I'm clipping that. We're gonna put that on YouTube Shorts. So Oh, that's gonna make the rounds. I'll be putting that on every social media platform. TikTok, the Chinese government's gonna be all over it, laughing at Dan tomorrow. It's gonna be fantastic.
No,
it's gonna be fantastic.
No, we have enough weather balloons.
Anyway, they're gonna send another flotilla of weather balloons over Canada. Kai, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. We're out of time. I'd like to thank Dan for setting it up. As usual, Dan does way more of the work of setting up guests than I do because I have weird social hangups. Kai, thanks for coming. Thanks for being a good sport. Thanks for putting up with Dan's abrasive wit this entire time. Folks, thanks for watching. And we have 100 viewers, by the way, which is spectacularly awesome. So you're welcome, Dan. So I'd like to wish everybody a great rest of the night, and we'll see you all next week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Same time, same bat channel. Oh, and I screwed the video up.
Big move. Big win. The moose is loose. Big move. Big win. The moose is loose.